Sonic the Hedgehog is a character that doesn't need another video plastered onto the internet. The history of Sonic up to this point could be summed up in less than 30 seconds. Watch.
Sega wanted something to put out on the video game market to face off against Nintendo's monopoly, so they made Sonic to be the face of the Genesis, sporting a character with an attitude and game with the vibe that matched the 90s, overthrowing Nintendo's dominance. But once Mario and Sonic took the leap to 3D, Mario flourished while Sonic fumbled, and Sonic continued to build a skeptical reputation for the next 2 decades until the late 2010s, where the series found new life and has since surged in a way no one could have predicted. Whoa.
Wait, let's rewind and take a look back at the past 5 years alone. We got the Sonic movies, which ended up being good video game movies, which was like impossible before then. Frontiers dropped, which, while not perfect or finished, taps into what makes Sonic as a game and character so freeing. That and the release of Sonic X Shadow Generations are doing so much for the series and what it's meant to be. Some people would argue this is a shock, but it's really not. What Sonic is has always been there. Sega and Sonic Team have just tapped into it in a way they never have before. So many said that by now the series should have been through, but then again, what else is new? Before we get too deep, let's cover our bases. Sonic had a rough transition to 3D is such a fucking cop-out. Rhetoric against Sonic is some of the worst examples of binary game criticism on the internet. Somewhere along the line, making fun of Sonic for a myriad of reasons became so standard and widespread that a lot of the time it feels like it's done for a lazy haha. In particular, the comparisons to Mario never seem to fade. Oh, Sonic's doing worse Mario Party. Sonic's doing worse Mario Kart. Oh look, it's worse Mario Galaxy. It's Bowser's Fury. Alright, we get it! This isn't inherently a bad thing. Being the opposition to Mario was a driving factor for Sonic's being after all, but it's getting harder and harder to compare the two on the same ground. One has had a stable, consistent trajectory, and the other hasn't. Not to mention the differences in their character and game design philosophy. What I'm trying to say is that there's something that makes Sonic Sonic, and by focusing on this, it'll become clear why Sonic has stuck around for as long as he has and why he'll continue to. Look, I grew up a Sonic fan. It was a sizable portion of my childhood, but I haven't been following the series for the better part of a decade. So, I could use the outlook of an active, loyal Sonic fan, and I think I know just the guy.
Jonas, quick! I need to talk to you about Sonic! Jonas? Wait, what the fuck?
I'm Jonas, and I'm a crazy Sonic fan.
First things first, love him or hate him, we can all agree that Sonic the Hedgehog is a series that has been plagued with inconsistency, and it's been this way since day one. Sonic the Hedgehog on the Sega Genesis is an imperfect game. Fun, but flawed. Yet it's the highest selling game in the entire franchise, and no other game has ever come close. We'll get back to the start later because it's important. But what's important here is that Sonic 1 was fun, and it still is kinda. And for the time, it took platformers to a different level. From a design standpoint, Sega and Sonic Team wanted to put out a game that took the potential speed Mario platformers could attain when speedrunning and make that the focus of gameplay. Couple that with a variety of environments and a great soundtrack to boot. Sonic himself was just a guy that loved nature and wanted to protect it. The design of Sonic was something that Sega and particularly Naoto Oshima wanted to get right, to the point where Oshima conducted an informal poll in Manhattan asking passerby what design of the sketches he had they liked the most. And that's how this ended up coming to be. By the way, did you know that Sonic was almost a dog?
What a bunch of, goated kids, by the way. Imagine Sonic being a dog. Crazy work.
Oshima and Yuji Naka are the two that are credited most for the conception of Sonic, the latter being responsible for the programming itself. The game was simple, fast, and rad, and people loved it. After Sonic 1, Oshima and Naka ended up working on different teams, Naka leading Sonic 2 and eventually Sonic 3, and Oshima helming Sonic CD. Let's take Sonic 3 out of the equation here. It's one of the best 2D platformers ever made, yada yada yada, everyone knows that. Sonic 2 and CD both knew what a Sonic game should be based on Sonic 1, but they took separate routes to convey that. 2 focuses on a mix of platforming challenges while mixing in speed segments that make those moments of going fast feel that much more satisfying. Good game in its own right, but that being said, we're a Sonic CD household. The argument can be made that CD just has a bunch of crap littered around everywhere. First of all, that's true for every Sonic game. Second, what offsets that in any Sonic game is how the game itself allows the player to maneuver around those obstacles. CD is the rawest display of Sonic's trial by fire nature, offset by the fact that the player has the most freedom to decide how they approach the game. And then there's the unique levels, top-notch characterization, and oh my god, the music fucks! I'm getting way off track here. The point is, Sonic and his nature were shown off so well across the Genesis era, but mostly in CD and 3 and Knuckles.
I don't think Sonic would want to be told by the developers how to get to the end. When you're playing Sonic CD, most people are like, they're not telling me what to do, bad game. But for me, it's like, they're not telling me what to do, okay, it's time to figure it out, awesome game. Once you figure out everything and play through the levels a couple of times, you actually find that the level design actually works with you. Let's say there's like a random spring just in the middle of the floor. There's a lot of those in Sonic CD. Most people don't know that you can use vertical momentum.
The more you play CD, the more you realize how you can interact with the levels and maximize the time-traveling gimmick. Once you realize how much interactivity is actually on the table, you realize how much the game allows you to push it to its limit, if it even has one. And then as the story goes, God invented the Z-axis sometime in the 90s and thus entered Sonic Adventure. What Adventure ended up doing was placing a much larger emphasis on story and characters. It was the start of ironing out what Sonic and Friends would be going forward. If we're gonna go back to the Mario comparison, none of the Mario games or characters had this sort of emphasis on their character beyond their base traits. Except for one, and she's in a league of her own. People tend to make fun of many aspects of these games now, but easily neglect that people ate it up. Heck, during this era, the highest selling game for a long time since the Genesis days was Sonic Heroes. And that sales mark wasn't eclipsed until Sonic Frontiers. We got existing characters ironing out themselves and getting more things to do, and we got new characters that added another dimension to the world. This all came to a head in Sonic. People fucking hate this game. Is it broken? Absolutely. Is it cringe as hell? You better bet the fucking house it is. But let me play devil's advocate here. You take away the stupid ass romance, you get a solid story about Sonic teaching someone how to live free. A dynamic that continued to exist in some form throughout this era. Silver has his own interesting stuff going on that you can at least respect the vision of what they wanted to do. And then Shadow getting the best story of them all with a final part to his arc that had been in the making across all the games he appeared in prior. By the way, the music is still great, that part never changed. I don't blame you for never wanting to touch this game ever, and I'm not trying to sell you on it either. But I'm willing to bet that there are people out there that genuinely enjoyed 06 and some of the other infamous games in the series. The fans, regardless of what anyone thinks, have stuck around for the bipolar ups and downs that this series has had. Case in point, the turbulence the Sonic franchise dealt with throughout the 2010s. The decade opens with Sonic 4, bad mobile game. Then Sonic Generations, which laid out what made Sonic so great over the past 20 years, and everyone loved it. It felt like with Gens, things were on the right track. Then boom, Sonic Lost World, mid. Then at least the show was funny. And then in 2017, Sonic Mania comes out and breathes new life into the series. Oh my god, we're so back. And then Sonic Forces did so much damage to the progress Sonic was making throughout the 2010s. Heck, Forces came out not even 3 months after Mania, and it felt like that Mania never even came out because of it. So if you're still here and haven't gotten whiplash, Sega goes, "Look, it's Sonic with human teeth and feet!" But then proceeded to do something surprising. They released a good, fun Sonic movie, and then another, with a third on the way. Meanwhile, Sonic Team cooked up Sonic Frontiers in 2022. The story might just be Sonic being everyone's therapist, but that opportunity allowed for characters to be explored in a new light. Plus, the game was thoroughly enjoyable. Flawed, but fun. And then Shadow Gens in October of this year, which was a fantastic short game made by Sonic Team's B Team. Guys, Sonic is so back! But did he actually ever leave? Looking at the Sonic franchise as a whole, there was always something the series offered that held true to what Sonic was. This is gonna make you feel old, but the little Timmies that would defend Sonic until their dying breath are adults now.
I played multiple games and I thought they were all good. Like once I figured out that people didn't like certain games, I was honestly shocked. I was like, what do you mean you don't like Sonic Adventure 2? What do you mean you don't like Sonic Unleashed? Those games are my favorite of all time. Or what do you mean you don't like Sonic CD? I've been playing that game for 10 years.
There were multiple things that kept people coming back. The top of that list, go figure, is the music, which has been consistently great throughout Sonic's entire life. And just, words can't do it justice, just listen. Hey, listen to this one too. Oh, and then there's this one. I can do more. Don't fucking test me here! Is that enough? Do you get the point? Couple that with its cast, which has been handled everywhere from good to terribly depending on the media. But when they're peak, they're peak. Tails, Sonic's little buddy, is always known as just that. The games push this narrative, and in Sonic Adventure 2, it's pushed to its limit when he's forced to step up and be him when he thinks Sonic is dead, showing that he does have courage and ability on his own and that he doesn't have to be in Sonic's shadow. Knuckles is loyal to a fault when it comes to his duty, but what gives his otherwise simple character more depth is when he questions his own duty in Frontiers, and compromise what he needs to do with what he wants to do. Blaze does this too, and oh my god, Blaze the cat! She feels like the antithesis of Sonic in almost every way, bound by duty like Knuckles, but other than that, her design, personality, and abilities make her feel like someone that can rival Sonic and how she can go toe-to-toe with him. Speaking of which, Shadow. He gets probably the most flack for being edgy the hedgy, but he might have the best arc across the series. There's so much to love about Shadow's story, like, I love his struggle between vengeance and justice. I love him finding out how to do things on his own terms and not because Maria, Black Doom, or anybody told him to. And I especially love Radical Highway, I just think it's so cool! But seriously, Shadow Gens showcases and reinforces the character he's become. Even Dr. Eggman, yeah, he's a direct threat to Sonic and his philosophy, but there's an obsession in his pursuits that goes beyond just maniacal evil guy. In particular, when it comes down to him working with Sonic like in Sonic Adventure 2. There's also characters that have such promise that go overlooked. Amy, for example, is often relegated to being obsessed with Sonic, but there is a core to her that's evident in Sonic CD and somewhat in Sonic Adventure 1. She's the purest representation of Sonic's positive traits, always believing in hope and a good future, like how Metal Sonic is the purest form of Sonic's negative traits. There's something to dissect about all these characters, from their stories to just how they look.
Just look at the art online. Or don't do that. Don't look at the art online. Or do. I can tell you that majority of those people haven't played like half the Sonic games, but they love the way Sonic looks and all the characters. They will draw them every day, like I did.
This is all for naught if there wasn't something about the games that didn't keep people coming back. Yeah, the games are far from perfect or consistent or good, but the design philosophy that Oshima and Naka implement have always been there in some way. And when they're done well, those are the games that feel the most immersive.
I think the best Sonic games are ones that really make you feel like Sonic. Or any of the characters. I think you need a good sense of speed, being able to feel like you can make any option at any time. However, you need to make those options and decisions quick, and in order to not be like very random like Frontiers, still have level design that helps you with that, like CD does.
Good Sonic games give you that speed, but the better ones give the player the choice to be creative with the level and reward them for it. Just look at some speedrunning clips from CD, Frontiers, honestly a lot of the linear Sonic games for that matter, and most recently was Shadow Gens. A good Sonic level has alternate paths that feel like a reward to traverse if you make the snap decision to go down them. It's like the opening cutscene in Sonic CD, or any other insane opening cutscene in any other Sonic game for that matter, where Sonic is just blazing through everything. When done right, you're put in those shoes while having to really be on your toes to make it work. It's game design that's reflective of what Sonic is, but that then begs the question, what is Sonic the Hedgehog?
That's a loaded question. What Sonic the Hedgehog are we talking about here? You know, there's a lot of Sonic the Hedgehogs out there. You know, we have classic Sonic. We have the classic Sonic from Sonic CD. We have Adventure Sonic. We have the random Sonic that was in Sonic Heroes. We have the 4Kids Sonic, you know? We got whatever the heck that was in the 2010s. Then we have the shoot-off of Sonic and Sonic Boom. And then we have Frontier Sonic, and not just Frontier Sonic, we also have Sonic from the IDW comics. That is a different character.
What about, I think you're forgetting 90s Saturday AM cartoon Sonic.
No, I'm not.
Like there are many versions of other Sonic characters, there isn't just one version of Sonic. Sonic himself is just a guy that loves nature and wants to protect it. Not because it's the righteous thing to do, but because he values freedom, and he wants everyone to have the freedom to live how they want. He doesn't care about the morality of his actions, which sounds like a bad thing, but it feels so cool to follow. Sometimes it comes out in how he shares his way of life with others, sometimes it's preacher than that, but how he does things is always there. It draws people in, and it keeps people around to see what Sonic is going to do next. It's why Sonic fans are as loyal as they are. It's why Ian Flynn, who sent ideas for the Archie comics when nobody asked, is now helming numerous Sonic projects as the head writer. It's why Christian Whitehead has been working tirelessly to reflect the feel of Sonic like he did with Mania. The people that love Sonic and have chosen to give back are a testament to what Sonic means to the people that follow him.
Every generation, there is a community of people who love Sonic. Sonic changes a lot, for the better or worse, but every time, there is someone who likes it. And that will carry on to the next generation, every time.
Not only is he here, but he's been here. And when you get down to the simplicity of what Sonic is, you want to follow him in his world, one where every step meets the rest. And in the games and the messages Sonic conveys, it'll make you feel like if you try, you can do anything.
One last question. Does being a Sonic fan make you a furry?
No!
チゲだファンキーだみんな黙って俺についてこいイエチゲだファンキーだみんな必死で俺についてこいカモチゲだファンキーだみんな黙って俺についてこいイエチゲだファンキーだみんな必死で俺に